in Mexico and came back with a little case of the upset tummy. He's I can hear him over there bubbling.
To put it lightly.
He's brewing like a pot of coffee. Well, it sounds like you may have had a parasite or a worm travel back with you here to Dallas. So right now on our ticket hotline, we say hello to the parasite living in DJ's colon. Hello.
Hey, DJ, get out. That means what's up, DJ? This voice problematico, eh? Probably for the best DJ didn't go to Japan, you know what I mean?
A little problematic there, but we'll move on. Do you have a name, worm in my colon?
Sí, mi nombre es Gusano. I come from the Montezuma floodline, but I guess you would call me Gus for short.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I don't know if you know this or not, DJ, but gusano is Spanish for worm.
Mati, bueno.
Yeah.
I like you, man.
Well, Gus, I like you too. I guess the $1 million question is, how did you get in DJ?
Well, as you probably already know, DJ was traveling to my country on vacation to impress his novia by not taking her to Iowa or her father's prison or something. One thing led to another in the bedroom, and DJ once again ran out crying.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I never cried during this, but...
Hey, silencio, por favor. That means silence in Spanish, DJ. Hey, man, don't make me hurt you. Anyway, like I was saying, though. Like I was saying, one thing led to another. DJ was looking for some off-brand Mexicano Viagra to impress his novia lady friend who thinks more of him as a... ¿Cómo le dice little cook boy in English? Is that what it sounds like? Anyway, I saw him coming down wearing his pink little dress or something. He bought an empanada store, and I bet you didn't know this, but DJ is also an amateur skateboarder because he was wearing, like, knee pads or something.
All right. Not true, but how are you able to see me?
It's no importante. That means not important.
Yeah, we know.
Gracias.
Okay, Espanol. Anyway, back to the story. He pleaded and pleaded with the street vendor. Ay, please, amigo, no quiero ser un niño tonight. No quiero ser un niño tonight. Why must I always be the girl? Anyway, mi amigo got mixed up in translation or something, and he thought DJ was a chica trying to do some sort of get out of kind of doing relations with a boyfriend or something down south or whatever. Anyway, DJ thought he was buying Viagra, but he actually bought a Mexican jelly bean that was tainted that I was leaving in.
Well, this is Gus, the worm living in DJ's colon he picked up from his trip down to Mexico this past week. You've known DJ for just a short amount of time, but what can you tell us about him?
Well, for starters, DJ wasn't being as truthful with you, Senor Montemor, as he was saying earlier.
What do you mean? What do you leave out?
Well, it was kind of hard to hear once I got inside here, but all I could recognize a back alley doctora when I hear one.
A doctor? DJ, you went to the doctor to get rid of Gus?
Oh, no. His novia brought him to the doctor herself. It's some kind of elective surgery or something. I don't know. I heard all kinds of dogs barking. I tried to poke my head out, and DJ was crying again. I think she was trying to trick him into removing something or something.
DJ, did she take you to the dog pound to get neutered?
None of this is true.
Hey, you call me a liar, DJ? Check this.
Ah! Oh, God! Stop it! Stop it!
Anyways, Monty, you see what I mean? I'm trying to have a good time with him on this vacation. Every couple of hours or so, I make it look like he wipes like he was at the Battle of Goliath. It's kind of excelente on my half, but man, ay Dios mío, this chica is the worst. All he does is complain, "Oh, Caleb, why can't I be like you? Why are you losing me money? I'm never gonna move out of my novia madre's house." Then get a load of this tanta. After we have a great couple of hours together, he was trying to get rid of me mid-flight, holding his knees together, trying to sweat me out or something. And I caught him trying to hang out the plane door, trying to drop me off in the Gulf of Mexico.
All right.
He admitted me like I'm D.B. Cooper or something.
Cheap callback, but you've been inside me over 24 hours now. You're causing me a lot of pain. When can I expect you to leave?
Ay, Dios mío. See what I mean, Monty? This guy, I'm really getting sick of him hearing his voice. I was thinking of staying here a bit, though. Maybe opening up like a better breakfast or something. I do appreciate, though, DJ, this morning you drinking all that coffee. Woof, I needed it, man. Anyways, while I have you here, can I ask you guys, if I could get serious for a moment, a question?
I guess.
You guys, work at, a sports station? You think the Cowboys are going to re-sign Isaac Aracon? Oh, my Dio. Yeah, that's my amigo right there, man. IVF is, don't worry, I'll grow into it. I'm good for it, man.
No, I want you out of me now. You're killing me. I can barely get through the show.
Swallow him a little Isaac Collar Cone
No,
jersey.
that
What's the
doesn't even
problem?
exist.
Yeah, man, geez, worry, relax. He's so testy. Hey, Monty, you seem like a pretty cool gringo. You want to go butt to butt with DJ so I can hop on over?
All right, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. We appreciate your time there, Gus.
Hey, DJ, what's for lunch? I'm starving for some comida. That means meal, DJ. Good.
All right. It's time for you to get out of me.
Anyways, crank up the music. Let's get the party started. Viva la Mexico! Woohoo!
Problematic, to say the least.
There he is, the great Gus Montezuma. And you're currently experiencing his revenge right there.
That explains a lot.
Man.
In the way that I've felt the last 24 hours.
Lo siento. Lo siento so much.
Lo siento, everybody.
We're so sorry.
Pretty good Spanish there, though.
Yeah.
Not better than I expected.
That would make sense. He was from Mexico.
Totally.
That would make total sense. All right. There was Gus.
They do Hard Knocks during training camp.
Mm-hmm.
And then they started doing in-season Hard Knocks. Well, last night was the debut of Hard Knocks off-season with the New York Giants.
And we did this segment when we first heard that it was happening. And we kind of pondered, is this finally the oversaturation of the NFL and Hard Knocks?
Yeah.
Because even the training camp edition of Hard Knocks this year is going to be a division, not just a team. Because remember during COVID, they had the Chargers and the Rams.
Yep.
They did that Hard Knocks training camp. And then during the season, it's just one team. And I think you can, see the different personalities and kind of – because I always fall for the trap of this team's going to be good when I see them on Hard Knocks.
Well, it made us
really
love
do.
the Jets last year.
It did.
Okay, maybe this Aaron Rodgers guy's got a little something.
I seriously thought, man, okay, I can see this.
All right.
But then we heard about the in-season, and then I thought, man, maybe that's too much. And then maybe it's the Giants because they're not predicted to be very good at all.
Yeah.
And what is this in-season? I don't know. And then it premiered last night. And I am all in on off-season New York Giants Hard Knocks. You know what? So much so, Matt, that they can take away the training camp Hard Knocks.
Okay, you know what? That actually makes sense because we've seen all that so many times, and it's so
same formula
filtered down now. It feels
every
like.
time you'll get to know maybe a star, maybe a fringe player, and what player that is not going to make the team, and they just kind of go through the cycle of seeing what they do every day and all that, and it's just the same formula. And maybe because this is a bit different, because it starts right when their season is over. And it just goes through episode 1, goes through free agency. And, man, it is so fascinating. I think it's the peeping Tom in all of us to just look in and see how things are working with, an NFL team. And, yeah, it's one that we may care a little bit more about since it's a rival, a division rival. Mm-hmm. But I think anyone who's interested – and how a football team is put together, not just, okay, you see the players, and if it's 53 spots on the roster, 49 or 50 of them when training camp starts.
Sure.
It's only a 2 or 3 upsets that, okay, you can try to see if you can grasp on during the training camp edition of Hard Knocks. But this is from the very beginning, including hiring a defensive coordinator, combine, Shrine game where we broadcast from.
Which I don't think we've seen anything that shows the front office behind the scenes going through the different hurdles you go through in the offseason.
And there's one particular moment that I don't think I'm spoiling for you, even if you haven't seen it. But they fell for the banana in the tailpipe when it came to the running back position. And I think the Cowboys are in the same boat. Because, of course, they have Saquon, and that was the majority of the episode, trying to see what was happening with Saquon Barkley, their star running back, and they started talking about the money. And you know what? We hear salary cap stuff with the Cowboys all the time.
Yeah.
And then you heard the GM of the Giants, the Giants saying, well, Daniel Jones is making $40 million, so you have to make some adjustments somewhere. He said it at least 3 times in that episode. And then you have this, Travis, right? They are contemplating about maybe franchising him again and trading him. But they're saying, what exactly are you going to get for that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if it's worth signing him for $12 million and then seeing if you can trade him and get some money. But they had kind of a false idea about how their running back position was going to go in free agency.
Obviously, Saquon, franchising and trading him, I don't think is realistic.
Are we positive that nobody's going to pay him that kind of money? Like, there's nobody in the draft. There's no free agents, receivers they're either going to be going back to their team at $20 million.
I mean, who would you say would go sign up running back to that dollar amount?
A team that's, anyone that has money to spend.
There's a lot of running backs in free agency.
Yeah, but are any potential difference makers really? Like after you watch this film?
Even if Saquon's number one, you're bored. Do you imagine anyone's going to have such a gap between Saquon and Jacobs, Pollard, Henry, whoever else, that they're going to want him at $12 million a year or minus whatever we're willing to eat and send a draft pick?
Right. And then if we did, what would somebody realistically give up?
I just think all the teams that need a running back are going to look at Saquon. Do you feel good about eating $3 to $4 million for a fifth-round pick? Like, I wouldn't.
I don't know. There's no guarantee we can trade him. So, having the needs that we have in a $12 million, 27-year-old running back.
And those are conversations you have to have. Man, it was a fascinating look at them just sitting around a table.
Yeah.
That wasn't even a table. It was just the office, them on couches, and they're just trying to talk through, I don't know, because early in the episode, the Giants GM said, man, I just think week 2 of free agency, you'll be able to get a steal at the running back position. And it didn't happen like that at all.
No.
Remember that first day of free agency, once that first running back went off the board, it was boom, 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 boom with money that we didn't expect because we all thought that position was being devalued.
Yeah,
and
it's
they
interesting.
did also.
I
The
like the
Cowboys
guy.
did also. And they squarely had Tony Pollard on their list of guys maybe to bring in to play for them this year. Man, it was way better than I expected. And again, I guess it's not because it's not the formula of what we see at training camp that can get a little bit old because we know exactly what they're going to do, and this is kind of new. But if they take the training camp away and do off-season and during season, totally buying in. That was a really good look at a team that has lower expectations trying to get back to the point to where they won a playoff game a couple years ago. They made it to the divisional round.
That's right. That's probably what got Daniel Jones paid.
And then, they had the 6-win season this past year, and now no one expects them to do anything because they have to figure out what Daniel Jones is about.
Man, I felt bad for Daniel Jones throughout the whole episode. He looked so beaten down.
He did. And
he's got to be, man.
And this whole season is riding on seeing if he is the one to lead them back to where they need to go. And if he's not, they will act quickly.
And he's talking about, this knee's not reacting like the way he wants it to. Rehab hasn't been going the way he wants it to. I felt so bad for that guy.
Maybe I'm the sucker, and I probably am, but that was a great look that we haven't seen around the NFL I don't think I've ever really just seen that off-season action when you're really in the room, and how they got their big guy in a trade this past year, Burns.
Yeah.
It was a casual conversation. That was in the preview, in the trailer that they dropped. A casual conversation with the Carolina GM, and boom, it happened like that. That was fascinating, man. That was way better than I expected. So NFL, I apologize. I said it was oversaturation, and I need more in-season hard knocks.
Off-season
Hard knocks. In-season is great also, but give me off-season because they are truly starting from scratch trying to put a competitive team together, and it is a lot for a team that's not very good. And you're seeing them.
Yeah.
Elf, have you heard any of this before?
I did. I actually heard some yesterday, and I was driving in this morning. I heard some, and I was laughing. I was giggling out loud. And then, of course, guys giving you zingers left and right. Why'd you do this? Why'd you do it like that?
Because I suck. That's why.
Stadium, 3/4, third.
3/4 full.
That was yesterday. Well, here's the thing, though. That was Ham in 2011 calling North Texas and Rice.
All right, so we'll give you a little pause for the cause. That's
yeah.
good.
Thank you.
This next piece.
I've matured as a broadcaster since then.
Right.
This is from 2013.
Still can't talk, but
yeah, it is.
Play-by-play.
So this is 2 years
better.
later.
This is 2
So
years
you
later.
have advanced
Yes.
sensationally.
I should be light years away.
Oh, I can't wait.
And again, for the uninitiated, if you're going through the radio, TV, whatever major, you probably took this class or you had the opportunity to take this class.
Hank Dickinson's sports broadcasting class.
Yes, where it's part of the deal is you have to do play-by-play. You got to record yourself. You got to do it by yourself. And that is really tough to do. I'll preface all of this with that.
Thank you.
Even a professional broadcaster trying to do a football game by yourself with no commercials, no spotter, no anything like that, no color guy, that is not an easy job.
You have to fill time. Who was a character here at the Ticket in the early days?
Fill time, yeah.
Fill time.
So let's just dive right in here. And I think this is the same place or the same problem you had in yesterday's audio right off the top. Just questionable pronunciation of the stadium that they're playing at.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to 2013 UIL Playoff Football. I'm Matt Birmingham, and today is the 5A Division II quarterfinals here at Apogee Stadium between Denton Ryan Raiders and the Cedar Hill Longhorns.
This is
I still didn't learn the name after 2 years.
It's at Apogee in Denton.
Handheld cassette recorder? Is that what you're doing? Can you play what the stadium was called one more time?
Apogee Stadium.
That's from yesterday.
Applebee's?
Apogee Stadium yesterday.
Happy hour. We're here at Applebee's. We got happy hour 2 for 1. Nachos are free.
And then he improved to this.
Apogee Stadium.
Yeah.
Apogee Stadium.
We're getting closer.
Apogee Stadium.
I don't know if that's closer or not.
Scotch.
Even the hello at the beginning was weird.
Yeah. Everything's weird.
Just right out of the gate.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to...
Why is there so much paper shuffling right at the beginning? Why weren't you on the page you were supposed to be on for the very start?
That's a little bit of Harry Carey. Hi, everybody.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to...
That's Harry Carey starter kit right there.
I think I need
Have a
tongue
bud,
reduction.
everybody.
Can't get enough of this. All right. Someone explain to me after listening to this audio what the down and distance is here.
It's now 2nd and 6. As the ball is snapped again to Mitchell Bridges, it's another handoff to Tyrone Williams, who scoots up the left side and gets the Raider first down, making it to the 40-yard line.
First down.
So, with 2nd and 8, Denton Ryan squeezes its way. Well, now they're calling it 3 and 1, so they're yard shy of the first down.
Okay, you just gave 3 different down and distances, and the PA guy gave a 4th accurate one.
I liked making it to the 40.
Did he also call it 2nd and 8?
Yeah. And 3 and 1.
3 and
I think
1.
he said at one point as well.
Had a first
With
down. Back to
2nd and
second.
8, Denton Ryan squeezes its way. Well, now they're calling it 3 and 1, so they're yard shy of the first down. So good pick up of 6 yards right there.
What accent was that right there? What did you slip?
I don't know if
you pick up a yards right there.
Good pick.
Quarterback.
What happens to your voice whenever you have to talk in an official capacity?
First down. So good pick up of 6 yards right there.
Right there.
By Tyrone
Right
Williams.
there.
Handoff to Mitchell Bridges is once again taken by Williams. And he makes another first. And he makes it to the 43-yard line for a first down.
Aaron Crathers with the tackle.
So now it's
2nd down, 10.
2nd and 10 for the Ryan Raiders.
That is the most confusing 49 seconds. If someone is trying to track what is happening there.
Down and distance, sir.
All right, here's...
So I reference a first down, which didn't happen, to say this is now the second, which it's the first, and then I wait for the PA guy to say the actual down.
Over 2 plays there, I think 7 different down and distances were mentioned.
I mean, you see these referees, they move the ball over the place.
That's a good point.
It's very confusing. Just like, I'm not I didn't go back to check to see if these stats were incorrect. I'm just assuming that this is false information that you put out here.
Mitchell Bridges looks over the side of the field to look at Joey Florence to see what he wants to do in offense. Joey Florence is in his 8th year of coaching, has a 71-22 record with the team.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Ryan averages about 9.1 points a game compared to Cedar Hill, who only averages 7.2.
Okay. This was a...
I spot nothing wrong.
This was
It was good math, though.
high school football playoff game between two very good teams, and you just said that one of them averaged 7 points a game this year. There is no way that Denton Ryan or that Cedar Hill averaged 7 points a game. I think if we were doing baseball, that probably would have.
Or basketball.
They got the Bama defense.
Yeah. Well, this game ended up 52-29.
Yeah, so they blew the averages out of the water. They were both averaging under 10 points a game. Somehow,
Forget what I told you earlier.
Somehow snuck into the
now
playoffs.
What actually knows this.
All right, we've got a couple of tough name pronunciations here from Ham. Let's see how he did.
They were then led by Damian Hobbs, who connected with wide receiver Quincy Adebawue for 3 touchdowns.
Nailed it.
There's no way
Did you say
Adebawue.
AWUA? Is that what you said?
I don't know.
Play that again.
Adebawue.
A WA.
Adebawue.
A WUA.
Got another one here.
The ball was called for a fair catch by number 28 for the Longhorns. That'd be Akasende Cedric Dwyer.
What?
Akasende Cedric Dwyer.
That is not that young man's name.
Probably.
There is no way.
Just like Olivier
Maxence Prosper.
Yeah.
Yes.
They can be tricky. There's no doubt, and it is tough sometimes with high school. 4th and 1.
Yeah, they didn't give me a pronunciation guide for this high school football game.
Here is a 4th and 1 conversion that led to some confusion.
Okay.
It is 4th and 1 at the 48-yard line. And it looks like they're going to hand it off to Larry Hill as he tries to push through the pile. It looks like Denton Ryan stopped them from making the first down. So now Denton Ryan will
number 6, Larry
have the
Hill
ball,
on the carry.
and it will be 1st and 48.
Okay. So they converted. It'll be 1st and 48.
And it will be 1st and 48.
First down and 10, Cedar Hill.
Oh, apparently they gave immediate spotting on the ball for the Longhorns, and the Longhorns will be actually converted on 4th and 1.
You
So
say 1st
McMillan
and
Company will
48.
stay on the field.
And then he says 1st and 10.
Okay. Listen to this word. This is the last thing we've got time for, but listen to this word salad
God.
here.
They gave immediate spotting on the ball for the Longhorns, and the Longhorns will be actually converted on 4th and 1. So McMillan and Company will stay on the field.
So I transcribed that. You said, going back, it'll be 1st and 48. Oh, apparently they gave him some. They gave spotting on the ball for the Longhorns, and the Longhorns will actually convert it on 4th and 1, so McMillan and Company will stay on the field, is what you said there.
So in my thought process, they didn't convert a 4th and 1, so they gave the ball to the other team, which then they penalized them 38 yards, but then gave them 48 yards back to get it 1st and 10.
Your explanation did not help, even 10 years later, clarifying what was going on there. So that's all we have time for here. But, man, this was a wild ride going through this high school football one.
I thought it was great.
This one, this was great. So great job, Ham.
Thank you.
We appreciate your sacrifice.
I think I'm getting better.
You might be getting better. Maybe we can get some tips from a real play-by-play man, Dave Raymond. Football yesterday, as these things have been percolating for a while, we're finally going to get to see the fruits of all of this conference realignment, as July 1st, yesterday, marked the official day that Texas and Oklahoma will join the SEC, as well as SMU becoming a member of the Atlantic Coast Conference. Later this summer, you've also got Cal and Stanford making it official, departing the Pac-12 to join the ACC as well. There are some big changes coming here. The timing is really good if you're a Texas fan, in that there seems to be a ton of positive momentum across many sports right now, but you're getting that bump up to the big leagues now. And I know there's going to be a lot of people that hate the lack of tradition and that we're mixing things up now and we're losing some stuff that people are very familiar with. But I think over time, a lot of that stuff gets brushed aside, and we're going to realize that a lot of that tradition, it's just what you're used to. Not all tradition is necessarily something that's worth saving. And some of it is. If it is, though, they'll figure out a way to play the games that matter.
Yeah, I think the weirdest thing for me is like seeing the new Big Ten with all those old Pac-10, Pac-12 teams. So seeing now that UCLA, USC, Oregon, and Washington are going to be playing a schedule that's Minnesota, Michigan State, Iowa, Ohio State, like that's what's really jumping out at me is really odd.
You're not looking forward to Friday night, October 18th, Oregon at Purdue?
It's just such a weird game. It seems like a bowl game.
Yeah, for sure.
But like you said, in 3 years or whatever, that's just going to be our new normal. I mean, I remember growing up with Nebraska and Colorado and teams like that as part of the Big 12. And then when they left, I was like, oh, okay, now they're a part of different conferences. I think, yeah, the biggest one that, around here, obviously, is going to be Texas and OU in the SEC because now they're not going to have a Rice on their schedule and then, a really bad Kansas team or Baylor. I mean, sure, they'll have, if Kentucky's poor or Vanderbilt's poor, but that seems different than Rice being bad or Kansas being bad. Like, they still seem like they have, 4 or 5 guys per side that could be on the NFL roster or an NFL roster.
Yeah, looking at Texas's schedule this fall, Colorado State, at Michigan, UTSA, Louisiana Monroe as your non-con. Mississippi State, Oklahoma, Georgia, at Vanderbilt, Florida, at Arkansas, Kentucky, at Kyle Field against A&M to close the season. You never know exactly how it's going to turn out at this point in the year, what some of these teams are going to be. Some are going to shock you. Some are going to be not nearly as good as you think. But that is going to be a gauntlet. And it's going to be very interesting to see this expanded playoff and how that's going to look. And with such a drastic departure from what they were doing previously. I mean, there were, throughout the first, 4 or 5 seasons of the 4-team playoff, we couldn't even get 2 competitive semifinal games. So I was always against the idea of whenever it was clear inevitably they were going to expand. I just never saw the need for this massive playoff expansion. I don't need to see Alabama or Georgia playing the 10th or 12th best team in the country. I know they can beat that team. There's not a lot of parity there. I don't need to see that to know that they're probably the best team in the nation.
Is it going to be worth it, though, when we inevitably do get a 12 beating a 5 or whatever? Like, it's going to happen. Like, at some point, you're going to see some big upset, and then
it'll
we're going to
happen.
say, oh, worth it.
It'll happen more often. Well, it's definitely going to happen just because of injuries, because there's going to be times to where the quarterback goes down, whatever, and yeah, maybe they had a great season, and we've seen that recently. We've seen that with Florida State just last year in how the committee looked at it. Obviously, they would have got in these circumstances in the new playoff, but that was obviously a massive difference. There's going to be upsets. I guess I wouldn't anticipate the top teams, though, going down. I think there will be upsets rank-wise because there's not as big of a gap in talent difference between, say, the 6th best team in the nation and the 12th versus the 5th best and the 2nd or 1st best. I think there's a big gap between those top 3-ish teams in a given year. Maybe Ohio State or Michigan as one of the top teams. Texas was in that mix last year.
Yeah, I think it just depends on the year, though. I mean, there are some years like, when Baylor and TCU were both fighting really hard at the end of the season and both got left out, but we all felt like, well, they could very easily be top 4 teams. So I think it just depends on the makeup of that year. I mean, yeah, there's going to be some years, especially if teams like Georgia and Alabama continue to at least recruiting wise, separate themselves from the rest of the field and can go undefeated or have one loss and that one loss be in their title game or whatever. But
does that work itself out a little bit now that we've got these expanded conferences where those teams, while they were great teams, and I'm not taking anything away from those TCUs and Baylors, but if they were playing in this expanded Big Ten or this expanded SEC, it probably wouldn't have been a situation. Maybe they would have been considered in the top few teams, but it probably wouldn't have been as clear-cut, if that makes sense. They wouldn't have had the regular season that they did have,
but
I mean,
they were operating under their rules at the time.
No doubt, yeah.
So
I'm just saying there probably won't be as many of those Cinderellas being able to navigate these tremendously tough schedules. And, I mean, it's going to be interesting, I guess, in that I guess I need to refresh myself a little bit on how they're going to rotate all of these games, because it feels like there's so many teams in conference now that there's already, I know in the Big Ten, going to a Big Ten school, Iowa only plays Ohio State they were playing them every 4 years, something like that, every 3 or 4 years already as the conference was, and now you're adding even more teams and diluting it even more, so it's going to be, I guess, kind of a feeding frenzy of trying to get those big games, many of those big games as possible. But
if you're one of the lower schools,
yeah,
right. I mean, Ohio State's going to be sitting there and just waiting basically for anyone that wants to play them. Whereas, your Minnesotas and Marylands and whoever else in the Big Ten that's a bottom tier school is going to be champing at the bit for their opportunity to play Ohio State or Michigan or whoever. I mean, I remember us talking about this at the time. I'm a fan of having the playoff expanded. Will most of the time the cream rise? Yeah, probably. But I'm waiting for that first big upset, and we finally get something truly interesting in the playoff. Because, like you said, the first two games, it seems more times than not, were not great.
There was always they were blowouts, but the last couple of seasons they've been good.
I'm thinking with more overall games, the more drama we get. I mean, it's going to be just improving the quantity to try to get more quality, but just more one and done college football games seems like a blast.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's going to be we're dealing with a fan base of a sport though that tradition is everything, and this is extremely
regionality and stuff,
untraditional things are happening here, and it's all tied to money, which really annoys people in general. I think rightfully so. Whenever there is one main motivator behind all of this, even the commissioners that they're hiring aren't even football people anymore for any of these conferences. It's all people that are experts in negotiating rights deals and being able to broker as much support and as many sponsors and dealing with TV networks. That's what it feels like it's all about. The final product will be, if you root for a good team, let's just say a top 25-ish team, those teams are probably going to get quite a bit better now. I think you are going to start to get a lot of that top-tier talent maybe that would go to smaller schools.
Yeah.
There's just too many opportunities now. There's too much money involved to forego going to one of these.
The top of whatever hour it was, I caught the tail end on the NFL Network of the 1970 Baltimore Colts.
And they were running like a marathon yesterday of all the Super Bowl winners in their little hour-long documentaries. And it started at like 9 o'clock yesterday morning.
Yeah, I don't know how far they got through because obviously there's more Super Bowls than hours in the day.
That's
at
true.
This point. But I watched the tail end of that 1971 because I was familiar with the fact that the Colts beat the Cowboys on a last-second field goal in a game that Chuck Howley for the Cowboys was named the MVP off the losing team because everybody thought they were the better team. And then I saw the 1971 Cowboys were up next. So it's like, I got to stay. Got to watch it.
And you text messaged me during this, And so I was able to flip it over and catch the last about 25 minutes of this.
And so obviously this is a legendary year for the Dallas Cowboys, the first time they had ever won the Super Bowl. They went on to beat the Miami Dolphins in what was really a dominating 24-3 win in Super Bowl VI. But I guess I've never really considered this because, again, I was born in the year this happened, so and
this
you were
was
not
10 years before me.
Correct.
So
I guess I never really considered this, but going into that season, the Cowboys were kind of like the Cowboys are today. Although they got a little further, but like some years they didn't even have to go very far to get to the championship.
That's right, and I'm pretty familiar with Cowboys history. I mean, just kind of working in this line of business and having to talk about the Cowboys as much as we do, you do familiarize yourself with the history of the franchise. But there were a couple of storylines from this that I was not as familiar with.
Yeah.
And so I was glad that you pointed me in this direction because it was an interesting watch.
Well, 71 was the sixth consecutive season in which the Cowboys won their division. And in the preceding seasons, 66, they lost the NFL championship game. That was, by the way, to go to the Super Bowl because it was before the NFC and AFC were named that. They were still the AFL and the NFL.
Yes, correct.
They lost to the Packers. In 67, they lost to the Packers in the NFL championship game once again. Then they lost a couple divisional games, round games before 1970. They lost the Super Bowl, as I mentioned, to Baltimore. And then in 71, they had a pretty wheels-off first half of the season, as a matter of fact.
Not great. Yeah.
There was a 14-game season back then, and they were 4-3 at the midway point. And part of the reason many point to is Tom Landry, who I knew this happened, but the way that some of these guys talked about him blew my mind. He just couldn't choose between his quarterbacks. Craig Morton had been the starter, but they had drafted Roger Staubach while he was going to have to go serve in the Navy.
Yes.
And he showed up, I think, in 69 to the franchise. And in 71, they were alternating them sometimes during games.
And this splintered the team a bit.
Yeah, one game Roger started. They were leading at halftime, and they went with Morton in the second half.
Which seems strange that people would question Tom Landry and anything that he did. But, I mean, this does seem like it was a very strange way to operate here.
Well, definitely Roger Staubach was questioning Tom Landry and his ways.
I had a lot of admiration for Craig Morton, and, but I was in a tough situation. I was 29 years old at the time, and I knew I could be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Well, I told Coach Landry, if you don't have the confidence in me, you need to think about having me go somewhere else.
Wow. Never knew that came up.
And I'd never heard that soundbite either.
No. I never would have imagined anybody was questioning Tom Landry.
And Landry was not like he was a rookie head coach at this time. He was like in his early 50s, I think.
Well, and
he'd been around a while.
Well, and he'd been the head coach here since 1960 when the franchise started. It wasn't just Roger Staubach at the offensive guys either that were questioning the handling of the quarterbacks. Mr. Cowboy himself, Bob Lilly, said the defensive guys weren't on board with the alternating.
I did not like an alternating quarterback. I know there must have been a reason that Coach Landry had, but as players don't like that. We like to have somebody over there. If he's not going to cut it, put somebody else in, but let us have somebody to lead us.
And so I believe that he said they nominated Larry Cole to go talk to the coach about this, that the defense wasn't on board with it.
Boy, that had to have been a long walk to that office.
Boy, it wouldn't have been. And, Bob Lilly did talk about it in this one, and I think Roger did a little bit too, that they didn't feel like Tom Landry was this master motivator. They didn't really feel like he was really that great dealing with players. He was the tactician. And he would just be like, well, why don't you go do this, and tell them what to do, but he wasn't like the rah-rah guy that got them motivated. And so I'm sure all those years coming up just short prior to the 71 season, there were a lot of questions about him.
Yeah.
Now going to the playoffs 17 years in a row, whatever it was, probably helped answer some of those questions. Yeah, on the alternating quarterback thing, the only one I really remember was the 1992 Denver Broncos. John Elway had gotten hurt. They were playing Tommy Maddox out of L.D. Bell High School.
Yeah.
And they were middling along, not very good.
And you need to put some respect on Touchdown Tommy's name now. He was an XFL MVP.
Later years, yes, he was. Yeah, first year of the league, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Well, they only had 2 years in the original.
Him and He Hate Me were like the two superstars of that league.
So Yeah, in 92, when the Broncos went to play the Cowboys in Denver, which, of course, the Cowboys won the Super Bowl that year, that's when Dan Reeves, who, by the way, was on this 1971 Cowboy team as a player coach.
Interesting. You don't see that much these days.
Not really. In 92 with the Broncos, he alternated, I believe, by play, Tommy Maddox and Sean Moore against the Cowboys, and it was terrible.
Yeah, it's not.
They were
not
awful.
great.
The other big story on this 1971 Cowboys team was their running back. So Dwayne Thomas in 1970 was drafted in the first round by the Cowboys, and I believe he led the league in rushing with a little over 800 yards, but also 14 games.
Yeah.
And
solid.
He was
Solid
named the NFL Rookie of the Year, and this is where his discontent really began, because his bonus for winning Rookie of the Year was $5,000. He had a buddy who played elsewhere. I forget who it was, he said, who was Rookie of the Year for his team, and he got a $25,000 bonus. And Dwayne's like, that was my whole contract, was $25,000.
And I had heard the name Dwayne Thomas, obviously, kind of doing some studying on Cowboys history, but I didn't realize how disgruntled he became and how quickly he became disgruntled.
So he wanted his contract reworked before the 71 season, and Tex Schramm, who we kind of learned from this, was a cheap ass.
A little bit. That's putting it lightly, yes.
Thomas kind of accused. Do we have him talking about his contract here, Dylan, right?
Yes.
Let's hear what Dwayne had to say about his contract and his dealings on his contract.
For Rookie of the Year of the NFL, you know what I got? $5,000. This player named Don Parrish was a friend of mine. You know what Don Parrish got just for Rookie of the Year on his team? $25,000. He received what my whole salary was just for Rookie of the Year on his team. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's not, oh, no, he didn't do that. Tex, I saw the check stub. The Cowboys knew I need money. I mean, my rookie year, I was broke.
So
at least he doesn't sound bitter about it still.
No, not at all. Yeah, Thomas later in this alleges, at least, that he was beginning to wonder, was this a racial thing with the Cowboys? Well, then he found out what Bob Lilly and Roger Staubach were making, which wasn't that much in the grand scheme of things, even for then. And he accuses of what they did was they convinced those guys they couldn't afford to pay him huge contracts, so they got him at X number, and then they tell all the other guys, we can't pay you more than Roger. So
yeah, look at what he's making. Yeah, even he's not making that much,
So he wanted his contract rewritten after his rookie year. They wouldn't do it. They ended up trading Dwayne Thomas to the New England Patriots in 1971. Not very well. So he got into it with the head coach there immediately because the Patriots coach wanted him in a 3-point stance in the I formation, not in a 2-point stance. And he said their fullback had this big, huge, wide ass, and he didn't want to have to put his face in it, so he refused to do it and tried to tell the coach the whole point of the I formation. And so 5 days after he was traded, Pete Rozelle, the commissioner at that time, voided part of the trade and sent, it was because there were draft picks involved, but he sent Dwayne Thomas back to the Cowboys, and the player of the Cowboys got back to New England.
Interesting.
How would that go if Roger Goodell did that today?
Probably not well.
And so he ended up playing the 71 season for the Cowboys. He vowed not to speak to anybody, and pretty much he didn't speak to anybody the entire season, and still had a tremendous year. He ran for almost 800 yards. I believe he led the league or tied for the league lead with 11 touchdowns that season. Bob Lilly had such amazing things to say about Dwayne Thomas. He's like, I saw him. He was the next Jim Brown.
Yeah.
The way he ran, how hard he ran. Didn't turn out that way for him, by the way, because he got traded to San Diego the next year, never played.
Yeah.
Ended up bouncing around to Washington and a couple other places before retiring in 1974 at the age of 27.
And he was a Dallas guy, too. He went to Lincoln High School, I think.
He attempted a comeback with them in the mid-70s and got cut. I think he tried to run through the Canadian League and didn't make it there. He did have a very famous quote, though, when they went to the Super Bowl in 71. If the Super Bowl is the ultimate game, why do they play it every year? So we're only supposed to play once?
It's a head scratcher.
So,
interesting guy.
Another interesting thing about this season, too, Texas Stadium opened in the middle of the season.
And they moved into the stadium in the middle of the year,
I
which is
believe it was
very strange.
The October 24th game, I believe, against the Patriots. That would be game 6. They opened the stadium. Now, would they ever do that? Would a team move stadiums mid-season?
No.
And listening to the guys they had on this, and again, it was just Roger and Lilly and Dwayne Thomas that they had from those Cowboys that they talked to. They didn't, especially Dwayne Thomas, he didn't like it. He felt it was just sterile. And he felt like fans just gave a polite golf clap to him there. And he said the Cotton Bowl was so much better. But it's kind of like when the Mavericks moved to the American Airlines Center. I think we thought the same thing.
No doubt.
It was very sterile. And when the Cowboys moved into AT&T Stadium, we all felt it was very sterile when they first moved in there.
You got great artwork and Sky Mirror, though.
I hear that. So, like I said, they were alternating quarterbacks, and they were at 4-3 mid-season when finally they convinced Tom Landry to make a decision, and they started Rodgers the rest of the year, and they didn't lose a game. And they won the Super Bowl, and they beat the Dolphins 24-3 in Super Bowl VI. But, I mean, I had no idea that there were players that ever questioned Tom Landry.
I did not realize there was this much drama surrounding that team.
No. I mean, I came about to football towards the last couple years of Roger Staubach's career, and so I watched a good 12, 13 years of Tom Landry coaching the team, and my dad absolutely revered him being around here in those years, and I didn't know anybody would question him like that. It was pretty fascinating. Dwayne Thomas did point out that every time the Cowboys have won the Super Bowl, they've done it with some sort of drama around the team. 77, Hollywood Henderson, and then in the 90s, you said Jimmy and Jerry.
Well, and that whole White House thing too. There were a lot of things going on there as well. But
it's all good. No drama these days.
No.
By the way, Dak was in a walking boot last week in Cabo. So
that's an interesting footnote.
Now wait a minute. Why does that cause you to miss sports observations?
I don't know. We don't know.
You're occupied with other things.
We don't know the answers to these questions.
How did this start? It took over Slack there for 24 straight hours, and I don't understand what started this.
Me. I sent in.
And why?
I sent in a song because I watched all these things. I'll explain this to you as we're doing the segment.
It's a weekend check.
It is, in a roundabout way. So over the weekend, there were several things that caught my attention. One being the event that will conclude tonight, the Men's Baseball National Championship, as we will talk briefly about Texas A&M and Tennessee. Now, I don't remember any other time in the last 25 years or whatever that college baseball even got a cursory mention. Right?
I feel like Texas and TCU have made runs.
Oh, you know what? I think we mentioned TCU and A&M because they had like a 18 or 19 inning game one time that made like the very first segment that we did.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I feel like this has happened.
And you made fun of me one year when OU got beat in the World Series.
I think I only make fun of when you pretend to care about softball.
Well, I think you made fun of my baseball team too, and I don't like it. I don't like you one bit.
It's possible, but who can recall?
That would have been 2 years ago. But I had kids sports for the majority of the weekend, but I was in and out of the house, and we came back in for about an hour and a half run of being outside. I had the fan cranked up, I had the TV on, and I turned on baseball. Not knowing, and I apologize to those who will yell at me, I haven't watched any baseball all year long, college baseball. And so I click on my YouTube TV, and it says, Texas A&M, Tennessee. I'm like, okay. And I click on it. And immediately when I click on, it is the perspective, when you're watching this, the only perspective you have is the umpire cam.
Yeah, you were watching ESPNU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was on Channel 8. I didn't know.
Well, that's okay. We'll bring you into the fold.
Oh, shut up.
Us College World Series enthusiasts.
Yes, you aficionados. You.
This is my third straight weekend watching college baseball, I'll have you know. Because I watched
I don't believe you.
You should, because I watched the regionals.
Did your daughter make you?
Then I found
watching
out,
it?
I got to tell you, her her support is only if she can't find friends to go out with. But yeah, at times.
Okay.
But every year for the last 3 or 4 years since my daughter has been an Aggie, we do get to that time of year where everybody does seem to care about baseball for a little while. And I'll be honest.
It's a baseball school.
That school loves baseball.
Yes, and that's great.
And by like March 1st, they're going to baseball games every weekend, and it's sold out in the regular season at that Bluebell Stadium.
I know they want to be.
They care.
I know they want to be a football school. They need to lean into this. This needs to be
I know,
their jam.
and see, even when you're saying nice things about them, you are being Corby. Like they can't play football, despite
they could drop football.
Despite 108,000 people in their stadium, they're pretty good at football too. They're they're obviously they don't have a Heisman Park.
Yeah,
but who does?
That's tough.
Only one.
Well,
but yes, they love their baseball in the last 3 years. Because you're right. I think 3 years ago it was the TCU A&M showdown where I think the loser or the winner gets the manager of TCU or whatever. Schloss then goes to A&M, as I recall.
I don't know how it worked out.
I don't know how it worked out either. But yes, the regionals and then the super regionals, which you would think the regionals would cover that part of it. But no, we come back next weekend and have the super regionals. Then we have 2 weekends in Omaha, and we're at the second weekend of that now.
Okay, so it made me nauseous, and I don't know if you guys have seen umpire cam before.
Yeah.
It's the dumbest
It's
thing.
awful.
Like, I don't even know whose idea it was, and to do a whole game like that. So I had to go out on Twitter and be like, what's going on? They're like, no, change it to Channel 8. I was like, oh, okay. So I changed it to Channel 8.
I can't find the game on my TV.
I changed it to Channel 8, and the very first batter that I saw was a Tennessee guy. Was a Tennessee guy that hit a freaking monster home run, and then I was like, okay, I'm done here. I can't.
You dusted your hands off.
I was like, I've done my work here. Now it's time to move on.
We're going to a game 3.
It's college baseball's wild. I don't know quite how to describe why it's wild. The aluminum bat thing means every hit has a chance to go out. It seems like.
Yeah.
The pitchers are ridiculously good. And
They're all like,
it's weird
like
because
all these guys are going to get a shot in the majors, right? Like are they that good?
The teams playing right now have several major leaguers on both sides. It looks like, and it's ridiculous.
And they all have mustaches.
They all have mustaches.
It's unbelievable.
It seems like most of them can throw 100. And while, like the 2 games this weekend, game 1, the Aggies won. They struck out 17 Tennessee players. 17. And then yesterday, the Tennessee starter struck out everybody except Laviolette, who hit a home run. And so it's somehow, and this I know this is impossible, but somehow nobody can get a hit, and yet everyone has a batting average of 480. So I don't know what's going on. I'm guessing when they're not playing each other, these teams are racking up 17-2 wins against other teams. I don't know. Tennessee has 5 guys who have 20 home runs or more, and if you realize they don't play that many games, what do they play, 50 games? To have an entire lineup who all hit bombs all the time is singular. A&M, I think, has the second most in NCAA, and they have 3 guys who have hit more than 20, and so these games are exhausting. They're back and forth. They're very, very tense. It looks like A&M is running out of pitchers. And so yesterday they're duct taping relievers together and bringing in freshmen with 8 ERAs to try to nail it down. And, we'll get a game 3 tonight. And it's really fun if you care. Like if you have a little skin in the game. I don't know if I would care that much as a neutral, but I also know some dudes drive to Omaha every year to go watch college baseball.
Like no matter who's playing.
Yeah, I guess. And if that's a thing, that's awesome.
So
I don't know.
Do they have the yell leaders dancing on top of the dugout?
I've never seen the yell leaders there. You need to stop being so obsessed with yell leaders every day of your life.
He's got a good point, though. The team they would fare a lot better if those yell leaders were on the dugout,
right,
doing the crotch cram and all that.
I don't know. I haven't seen him. I'll keep an eye on it.
So I saw Zach Barnett, our buddy Zach, put this out there that tonight's Tennessee-Texas A&M game is a rare event in sports. 2 teams playing for their first ring. I thought Tennessee. I just figured Tennessee had won national championships before in baseball.
No, that's been the theme on the broadcast. Is a first-time champion will be the 5th different consecutive SEC national champion.
So in Major League Baseball, the last time that happened, where 2 teams played in the World Series looking for their first ring, Phillies-Royals 1980.
Oh, wow.
NFL 1981, 49ers-Bengals. NBA 06, Heat-Mavs. Boo. NHL 2023, Knights-Panthers. He doesn't have an answer for the NCAA or for football. Which must mean that
it never happened.
Like, it's the same teams every year. It's one of the same 5 teams every year. And in men's basketball, 2021, Baylor Gonzaga. So, yeah, this is rarefied air for those teams.
Are you going to prioritize College World Series or Game 7 Stanley Cup Finals?
Well, the College World Series starts at 6. We probably won't drop the puck until 7:15, and at that point we'll have a feel for how things are going. But this is a big night for the Twin 75s, don't you think?
Yeah, maybe get some golf simulation in while you're doing it.
Probably not, but yeah.
Try to qualify for Hilton Head.
This is a 2-screen night.
So the Aggies are looking for their first national championship in the Big 3 in 87 years. 87.
Back to the fake one they claim in the 30s.
Is that a fake one?
I don't think so.
I think that's a real one.
They were undefeated. So I do know that.
So they have one in the 30s, and you're still saying that one's not real.
Was anything real back then?
That's true.
And that's true. When I grew up, Wisconsin had a banner, I think, the same year, 1939. Is that the year?
37.
Wisconsin
for the Aggies.
Check out this Wisconsin national title, and it's real. They were the 1939 national champion in boxing.
Oh, good.
I don't know when we stopped naming a national champion in boxing, but at some point our institutions of higher learning decided we don't need a boxing program.
A&M claims 1919, 1927, and 1939 as football national championships.
Just keep them.
Nobody can prove it
Just keep them. It's okay. But for the Aggies...
They're big dogs tonight, by the way.
Are they?
Yeah.
Why? They look pretty even.
I don't know. Ask Vegas.
Does Tennessee have some loaded pitcher coming in or something?
Well, Tennessee's been the number 1 team the whole
By the way,
World Series.
Tennessee's got a hot coach. And I heard you. So
yeah, he's going to Texas.
Well, I heard it was Schloss going to Texas. I heard that Texas is going after whoever.
I don't think that's real.
Do you understand the venom? Because Chris Del Conte, the Texas AD, and Schloss were at TCU together forever. But could you imagine the venom? It's already there, clearly, and it's going to be so horrific in November when they play football
against. Where are you hearing
against.
this? Is this a Sooner Scoop thing?
No, it's just bouncing around the internet. Like
because all I've heard all day is
the Tennessee coach
Tony Vitello.
Yeah,
he is
fetching.
He's easily more handsome than Schloss.
Yeah,
no, and I bet you Schloss would tell you that.
I'll definitely give him
He's
that.
the Sam Hartman of college baseball managers.
100% he is.
Now, quickly back to our story. NCAA boxing champions of all time.
Yeah.
Schools with multiple national champions. Here you go. 2 teams have 2, Michigan State and Idaho State. 2 schools have 3, Idaho and San Jose State. So imagine Idaho and Idaho State in their boxing rivalry.
Oh, they hated each other.
And then with 8 national champions, Wisconsin.
Is their last one in 39?
No, that's their first one.
Oh.
39, 42, 43, 47, 48, 52, 54, and 56.
And then black guys entered the picture.
1960 is when the NCAA decided to no longer have a boxing national champion.
Oh, so they're going to own that forever into perpetuity.
Yes, and we always say the NCAA took away boxing because we were too good at it in Wisconsin.
Right.
Where we were all raised on boxing.
All right. Well, there you go. There is.
Wow, we got 3 opens.
There is that segment known as the.
Well, joining us now on the ticket hotline is the guy who's in charge of everything at the Star. We say good morning to the owner and GM, Jerry
good
Jones.
Morning, man, and it's good to be with y'all on this very morning.
Morning.
It is. What are y'all calling about now?
Well, the story out that Mike McCarthy might be getting a little fed up with the way you're running things. Do you sense that at all from your head coach?
Well, I'll tell you this. If this report is true, if it is true, and it will be if it turns out it is, Mike McCarthy needs to shut his Pittsburgh pie hole before I shove the Bravo Eugenia in it. All right, I don't want to hear about they running they mouth about how I'm not a good owner to him. Okay.
Well, yeah, it's just a report and sources and all that. It's not as if he held a press conference and said
it sounds official to me. So I'm pissed at Mike. I'm pissed because that's the thanks I get for giving him $5 million a year in cheesesteak money. He gets paid a whole bunch. You think I'll put up with a coach disrespecting me? Hell, I fired a guy coming off back-to-back Super Bowl wins. You don't think I'll fire Mr. Just Above 500 or whatever he is?
Well, he's considerably over 500 in the regular season, anyway.
Yeah, well, I will if this report is true. If it is true, and if it is true, then it is. Then I will do to Mike what I did to Wade.
What's that?
Lead him out into the woods, make him kneel down, and then hit him over the back of his head with a shovel while he watches cartoons.
Okay.
Cartoons?
You didn't do that to Wade.
Now, of course, Wade would wander back into town. It was weird. He had like homing instincts or something, like a cat. But he'd show back up at his desk the next morning and ask what happened at the end of the cartoon. That was his only concern.
Well, you could have.
I had the training staff measure this one time because Wade had the skull thickness of a bull elephant.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's tough.
I once got mad at him in a meeting and shot him with a .38. Right in the skull, and the bullet glanced off, and he said, "Jerry, why did you bee sting me?"
Oh my gosh!
He thought I'd ordered a bee to sting him in the thinker there, but no. What?
What? No. Well, I was just going to say you could have given Mike McCarthy an extension if you really believe in him.
Could have, but didn't, and I didn't for a very important reason.
Why?
Because I'm all in.
All in what?
I'm all in. That's my motto. I'm all in. It's been my motto ever since I was sweating behind the gate agent at Little Rock Hartsfield Airport in 1995.
Come on, just one time.
All in. Hey, look, this is going to be my year. I only have a few more years left before I meet the devil and have to pay him for my earthly fortunes. So I really need this to be my year, and that's why I've made very smart moves.
Yeah.
Like keeping my high-priced quarterback in limbo without a vote of confidence from me in the way of a contract.
Okay.
Like making my star receiver skip training camp and hold out. So see, I'm saving some wear and tear on his body there.
Okay. All right.
Smart.
There's some logic to that.
I did nothing really in free agency because that's what experts and wise people were expecting me to do. Some good free agent moves, so I zigged when they zagged.
Okay.
Using the element of surprise there.
Okay.
I brought back an over-the-hill running back featuring a nose ring and poor personal judgment. That's my doing.
That's GMing right there.
And let's not forget, I've retrofitted another kid to my family in order to piss off my wife and guarantee I'll be dealing with personal issues, not personnel issues. Very smart.
Yeah. Another distraction.
81 years old, gentlemen. I'm worth $10 billion. And I've been a very big success in this world, and I continue that streak to continue for at least a few more years before I'm put in the ground. And I will win another Super Bowl. You make book on that. I'm faithful to my word.
Okay.
Not to my wife, but my word.
Okay. We'll hold you to it.
Wait, speaking of not being faithful, anybody got a number for that Huok Tui girl?
Okay. All right. That's
2 days in a row.
I want her to spit on that
thing.
I did want to get back into a little Mavs, and we a little more than a week or so removed from the Mavericks landing Klay Thompson, and apparently there's a bit more to this story than we thought.
Yeah, Sam Amick from The Athletic had this story. I guess it came out late on Wednesday. And first off, I was shocked when we first heard through this story that the lack of a state income tax may have played a factor with Klay Thompson choosing the Mavericks.
It helps.
Because the Lakers are actually going to offer him more money. But, yeah, on a per-year basis, I think he gets helped out by the income tax. But a guy who was key in recruiting Klay Thompson was our old guy Michael Finley.
Yeah, and I am I'm not surprised to hear this, but you've really felt like it was mainly Nico Harrison that had his hands in this. But
so apparently Sunday night, the first night that you could start talking to free agents from other teams, Klay Thompson had dinner in a Bay Area Italian restaurant with his agent, Nico Harrison, and with the Mavericks Vice President of Basketball Operations, Michael Finley, who, of course, was an All-Star many times from 96 to 05 here.
Heck of a player.
I always felt bad for Michael Finley because he's the one who they traded Jason Kidd for him, and it's unfair to have to live up to that. But Michael was a good soldier here, was a good player. I felt bad that he wasn't part of that team that at least went to the finals in 06.
Mm-hmm.
He was gone after 05. But he was always and he was always a great guy to talk to, and apparently is more involved here in the organization than we realized. And here's a big difference. As the Mavericks actually land somebody in free agency, which they have never been able to do.
Yeah, I mean, really nobody.
Mark Cuban wasn't involved in this, at least by everything we have read. And I thought after the sale, he was supposed to be running the basketball side, right?
That was what we were told, yes. I don't know how much he is involved with daily operations, even on the basketball side at this point. But, yeah, we were told that whenever the sale went through that he would still handle a lot of the basketball stuff.
Apparently this was Nico and Michael Finley. And Finley is actually the guy, according to Sam Amick's article, that's the guy Klay Thompson talked to the most at this dinner. I do take exception.
Do you think Finley took a beer out of his hand like he did like a glass of wine or something? They're having this nice Italian meal and he just kind of reached over and grabbed it?
Was it what's his name that the owner did to Luka, or was it Nico did it to Luka?
No, I think it was Finley, I think.
Was it Finley that did it to
so.
Luka when they were celebrating after winning the Western Conference?
Yeah.
I doubt he did because the season's not upcoming. I do take exception, though, with what Sam Amick writes here is that Thompson asked Finley about his career and the old school era in which he played for the Mavericks.
Old school era? It wasn't that long ago. He's not talking to Brad Davis or
96 to 05.
Roy Tarpley.
But he apparently had a lot of questions for Michael about the Dallas scene, Texas living, Mavericks fans, the arena environment. Of course, Finley played in both arenas.
Mm-hmm.
We were Reunion Arena when he got here. He was interested in Finley's journey through his time with the Mavericks, and Finley obviously must have given him a lot of the answers that he liked along the way, too.
Yeah, I've always found it to be a bit strange that the Mavericks have been unable to land free agents. I mean, it's not like Dallas is if for nothing else, like you just mentioned with the state income tax, I mean, they're basically making more money than they would if they go to some of these other coastal cities, if they go to New York or Boston or L.A. or one of these places. But they just have never had much luck doing that, and it's never made a lot of sense to me. I always understood why, the Rangers couldn't sign big-name free agents because they were playing in a stadium that was 2,000 degrees.
Yes.
It's not really a big deal when you're playing in an arena. It never made any sense to me why players wouldn't want to come to Dallas.
They all had PlayStations in their lockers. Why wouldn't the free agents want to come here? Remember that?
Good point, yeah.
Yeah, DeAndre Jordan, of course, is one of the famous ones. They thought he was coming here, and then they
locked him in the house.
To sign with Houston, right? Is that where DeAndre went then?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Darren Williams, who we thought was going to come home, guy from the Colony. And
yeah.
He didn't
Eventually he did, but it was when he was
finished.
Yeah, past his prime. But
none of them ever seemed to pan out. They were able to keep their own guys or make trades. And, I did hear somebody the other day saying, well, this isn't really a free agent signing of Klay Thompson because it's a sign and trade.
Right.
That's still called a free agent signing.
Yeah.
When they're done
in my mind, yes.
I mean, most teams have to do things like sign and trade because they can't fit them in the cap. So this is a free agent signing here. The only thing that the Mavs were able to pull off for many years were some amazing trades, even way, way back in the old school era of the Mavericks, as was referred to in this article, like Raef LaFrentz. The fact that the Mavericks were able to both bring in Raef LaFrentz and send out Raef LaFrentz with that contract in 1 year's time was amazing.
Yeah.
The moves they were able to pull off, but they could never get over the top with anybody like they did here with Klay Thompson.
Do you think Thompson's a bit washed, or do you think he still has enough to where he's going to be a true contributor?
When he's not asked to be the number 2 guy here, I think he's got some left.
I think you're probably right.
He's going to be asked to stand out there on the 3-point line and be wide open when Luka or Kyrie drives, or somebody else, because he's so prolific at catch and shoot threes, and that's going to be his main role here. I think he's a big piece that they needed and will help them.
Isn't his perimeter defense a little questionable, though, at this point? And that's something that they just desperately need.
It definitely has dropped off. I know for a while he was very highly rated in the, all the statistical models as a defender. That has certainly taken a hit after missing one season with a knee and another season with an Achilles.
Yeah, those are two pretty tough ones.
And, and that's kind of what I think led to his departure from Golden State. He signed his huge deal after blowing his knee in the finals, and then he missed all that season, and then coming into the next year before the season ruptured his Achilles. So he had 2 years on like a $150 million contract, 2 years that he didn't play.
Yeah.
And so then he comes back, and he played well since then. Heck, they won the title again in 2022 with him on the team. And then they signed Draymond to a huge deal and didn't do anything about Thompson's contract. That's where things got sideways. And then last offseason, there was talk of a 2-year, $48 million extension, which didn't happen, as it turned out, which obviously on a per-annual basis would be more than what he got now. There was some thought the Lakers were offering him 4 for $80, whereas the Mavericks were 3 for 51, I think it is, 52. I think a lot of it, obviously Michael Finley had some part of it here that I didn't know about, that we didn't know about. A lot of it, I think, had to do, too, with him just assessing the team situations.
Yeah, and I think his existing relationship with Nico Harrison helped. And then apparently he was talking and texting with Kyrie Irving quite a bit about the situation here. He was also had a phone call, I think, with Jason Kidd regarding the situation here and kind of what his expectations would be and what he would be contributing to the team. I think it's a good fit. I mean, for a team that has had zero success ever bringing in free agents, it feels like a hit.
It's a huge win, definitely, on the Mavericks side. Don't you think the head coaching situation that the two teams may have played a factor?
It's possible, yeah.
And you got a coach here who's been to the final, and he's been to the West Finals in 2 of the last 3 years. And you've got a coach of a volunteer coach of a fourth grade team leading the Lakers.
Still one of the strangest signings ever.
I think that has a lot to do with it, and I think looking at the roster makeup too.
Right. Well, and again, it's a team that just is coming off a finals appearance, and anytime you can play alongside somebody like Luka, it makes your job infinitely easier as a basketball player because he's that good.
Let's give it up for Michael Finley, though, helping in the free agent recruitment process for the Mavericks.
There was a time.
Calvin Watkins of the Dallas Morning News reporting that CeeDee Lamb plans on holding out into training camp if a deal is not done before then. Of course, CeeDee Lamb trying to get paid like his top wideout cohorts have recently. Of course, Justin Jefferson signed a 4-year, $140 million contract with 110 of that guaranteed. Amon-Ra St. Brown signed a 4 for $120. So Cowboy fans waiting for some kind of 4 for between 120 and 140, 130 or something like that deal to be announced. It's just, is it going to go into training camp? Is he going to have to start getting docked for missing days? When we talked about this earlier, we were both in agreement that they're going to get this done. This always seems a little ridiculous because I don't know that this is going to benefit the Cowboys in any way to keep on, playing this chicken game with CeeDee Lamb. If you're going to end up paying him $130 anyway, just go ahead and get it done.
Yeah, ideally. I wonder how much of the delay is coming from the player side, though. I wonder what motivation they have to really get things done quickly. The longer they wait, the more pressure that's applied to an organization and a team right now that is with their backs against the walls. And I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. I feel like everybody's kind of been jumping on Jerry about the all-in comments and all that, and certainly that's all garbage. Every team is all in every year. That's just... that's just words. That's just him talking. That's just him getting attention or drawing attention away from his failed team. But I don't know that it's a bad thing that they've got so many guys that are up against it here and that their futures with the organization aren't necessarily set. It seems like the rest of the NFL is telling you that it's a pretty smart move to lock up top receivers, especially top 5 receivers, because those guys are making a ton of money. There's also a lot of really good receivers out there. I'm not saying that you can go out and find another CeeDee Lamb, but as you start going down that list, there's a lot of talent, and there's always a lot of... You just think about this last draft, how many big-time receivers were taken up towards the top of the draft. It's a good time to be an NFL receiver right now.
Yeah, I mean, are you saying that in that if you need to move on, you can? Because getting a guy that we would probably comfortably say is top 5 right now is still a different animal versus getting someone that's really good.
I'm saying that CeeDee Lamb's representation understands the position they're in and the value that he has and the value that he has to the organization. And he was on Micah's podcast, I remember, shortly after the season ended, and he was talking about, I want to break records. He wants to be up there. He wants to be in the mix for the highest paid receivers. And that's fine, but it's kind of backing yourself into a corner here to where the Cowboys have a ton of holes, it feels like. Feels like Zach Martin is hanging on by a thread, and that's, along with Tyler Smith, about the only things you feel great about on the offensive line right now. It feels like...
What about Cooper Beebe?
I don't know. Let's see. I got to see it before I anoint. We've seen too many guys not excel in their first year, and maybe that's expecting too much to expect a guy like that to step in and be really good. But they're going to sign him. It's going to be for a ton of money. We'll see what happens. I don't know.
Well, speaking of Micah's podcast, we have some audio here that came out last week. So correct me if I'm wrong here, Tyler, but Malik Hooker was on Keyshawn Johnson's podcast. And, of course, Micah, throughout the year, has a deal, I believe, with Bleacher Report, where every Wednesday, I think, he puts out a podcast and he comments on basically everything NFL. And, you know, there's been some decent clips that have come out of that. I think more recently we found it interesting that he was talking to, like, Jordan Love, and Jordan Love was explaining how easy it was for them to beat the Cowboys. Then we had the weird one where, him and CeeDee Lamb were, like, eating dinner mid-podcast,
steak.
And it was really strange. But that's been a topic of conversation because, you know, people are saying when things are going bad for the Cowboys, do you want your defensive leader to be talking to the world every Wednesday instead of, you know, throwing the football through the tire or whatever you're doing to get better?
I think you're sacking the tire if you're him.
Just tackling it and having to keep tying it back up to the branch. Well, this was what Malik Hooker had to say about Micah and his podcast.
I'm not into that type of stuff. You know, some guys it works for, you know, like you see the Jason Kelce's and guys like that who are successful with the podcast as well as performing on the field and having success with it. I don't have no problem with it. My thing would be, though, for Micah, my advice would be for Micah would be, you know, just make sure we're all right, you know, where and being where your feet are. Because if we're at work and, you know, the run game's terrible, but you're doing a podcast every week and you know the run game is terrible, then, you know, what are you really caring about? Are you caring about the crowd that, you know, is watching your podcast? Are you caring about the success of our team and the Super Bowl that we're trying to reach? See what I'm saying? So, I mean, like, but also, you know, a lot of people got to remember Mike is young. You know, he's still trying to find his way. He's still trying to grow into who he's trying to be. So I give him grace, you know, honestly. Like, I always hear people say stuff that he done said on the podcast or something silly he done said. But people got to remember, like, Mike is still a big kid.
And I think his comments got taken a little out of context where people posted a shortened version where, yeah, if you clip that down, it sounds like he's going at Micah, which, of course, is going to get people to click on it and what have you. But I don't know that that's necessarily what he was saying, and he's just answering the question. He's right. I bet there are some guys that are kind of grumbling whenever they're on a bad streak and nothing's going right, and he's joking around on his podcast. You can be really good, and I understand the Kelsey podcast comparison. Those guys have 4 Super Bowls between them, though. They've kind of been there and done it and are really established. And, okay, you can kind of do that whenever you're that type of guy. Not saying that Micah's not one of the best players, but
he hasn't proven himself.
Yes.
I mean, as far as, you know, being a part of team success, he's certainly, you know, finished super high in Defensive Player of the Year, and he's, you know, a big, you know, getting a bunch of votes for the Pro Bowl and stuff, but his team hasn't done anything, and he hasn't done a whole lot, especially late in the season, where that seems to be a part of the Micah story now, is he's going to come out of the gate real hot. He's going to get like 3 or 4 sacks against some team in September, and he's going to be cruising, but once we hit late November and December, he's going to hit some kind of wall, and that's when the podcast is a little more annoying.
Yeah,
is when things are going poorly and he's still out there doing the same thing. So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like any other player that's truly exceptional at their position, you're going to put up with a hell of a lot more than you would if, you know, Dorrance Armstrong had been doing a podcast or something. But, yeah, I mean, I am kind of curious just in general what all players think about it. And for the most part, if you had them talk about it publicly, they would be in support of it. But I could imagine, yeah, when the defense just gives up 400 yards on the ground to Buffalo and he's out there doing a podcast, does that get annoying? Probably.
It's the Cowboy way. That's what they do. They encourage you to capitalize on your fame.
Got to get yours.
Part of the deal.
You got to make that star on your helmet mean something.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not
whether
really
a Sunglass Hut or a podcast.
It's not really how it works, but you know what? Cowboys are going to cowboy.
There was a time when the best pork sausage came from a farm just down the road.